Now, it was claimed that this guy had killed his wife. This guy is Joe Bryan. Joe Bryan was eventually released after serving a bunch of years, decades, I want to say 50. He was like in jail for 50 years. So Joe Bryan is going to get released, and he's already dead. So he only got a few years of freedom before he died. Now, he was actually convicted twice of murdering his wife, Mickey Blue. But he didn't do it. He was actually 2 hours away when it had happened. And he was super sad about it. And they essentially they knew each other their entire lives. Who was the person that actually killed him? Well, Dennis Dunlap. This is all coming from a book called Framed. John Grisham and Jim McCloskey. So this guy right here is Dennis Dunlap. And they're saying that Dennis Dunlap was the guy that had shot and killed Mickey Blue when Joe Bryan was out of town. Here is Joe Bryan and Mickey Blue in their younger days. So let's talk about their relationship when Joe Bryan was in the second grade. When he was in the second grade, he met his future wife, Mickey Blue, who was in the first grade. They knew about each other. They grew up in their small neighboring Texas towns. Mickey Blue was popular in school, but she was very quiet and studious. Joe Bryan didn't really interact much. As teenagers, Mickey Blue had dated Joe Bryan's twin brother, and Joe Bryan had dated Mickey Blue's cousin. But then they finally started to date each other when Joe had asked her out, and she quickly accepted. Within weeks, they were inseparable. Both wanted to be teachers. They went away to different colleges with the same goal. When they got married in 1969, Mickey Blue taught in an elementary school, and Joe taught Latin and English and coached the swim team. He had a small faculty apartment. They spend some of their happiest years there. Their lives are consumed with each other. They dreamed of starting their own family, but they got the sad news that Mickey Blue could not bear children. In 1975, Joe Bryan and Mickey Blue are going to return to Mickey's hometown in Clifton, Texas. Her parents still lived there, and the family was respected and well known. I mean, they do seem really happy. She's got a nice little fancy haircut. She kind of reminds me of, who's that woman? Mary Poppins. Who's that woman? The Sound of Music. There's a bunch of pictures here. Let's go through some of these pictures. So he seems okay. He seems happy, good spirits. She seems quaint and nice. She seems friendly. Mickey Blue. Joe Bryan is going to say, like, who in the world would want to kill Mickey Blue? Who in the heck would want to kill Mickey Blue? So he was an ex-principal. She was a teacher, but they had various roles. And then here's just a bunch of different pictures of them together. He's in a nice suit. She's in a nice little outfit there. They are just clearly happy together. They like being around each other. And what sucks is that the good times, they're not going to have children. But his legacy isn't going to be just being a principal and a teacher, and then they live out their lives and then die of natural causes. Instead, they're going to accuse Joe Bryan of murdering Mickey Bryan when he was 2 hours away in a conference in Austin. And then it all comes down to this damn not to the dog, to the it all comes down to a flashlight. So I don't know if I got the flashlight stories. 33 years afterwards. Okay, so he's going to be freed after 33 years. His murder conviction rested largely on blood-stain pattern analysis, which is still being used. It kind of makes me think of Dexter Morgan. They never think it's the blood-stain analysis guy, the blood guy. And the blood guy is going to recant his testimony. He's like, I thought I knew what was going on, but it turned out I had no idea. There's been several books. There is looked like a 2020 special or something. I've seen a couple videos about him. John Grisham strongly believes that Joe is innocent, and he doesn't want Joe Bryan to die in prison. So Detective Robert Thorman, who performed the bloodstain pattern analysis, had wrote that his conclusions were wrong. Some of the techniques and methodology that he used were incorrect, so therefore some of his testimony was not correct. Whoops! I guess you can't really get up on the stand and say any of that at the time. But I guess 33 years later, you're retired, you're not in the field anymore, it won't affect your career. So The Blood Will Tell Part 1, The Blood Will Tell Part 2 features ProPublica. There's kind of two little feature stories there. When Joe got out, he just wanted to play the piano, but only if the sound didn't bother the guy, his brother, in Joretta. The first thing he says when he gets out of prison is, "Thank Jesus. He kept his faith while he was in jail. He even got attacked once when he was in jail." It's kind of crazy. He got convicted twice. 2 times. So, a 4th grade teacher who was quiet was murdered, and then her husband, who was a beloved high school principal, when that Tim Walls was a high school principal too, was charged with killing her. Did he do it, or had there been a terrible mistake? So this is a long article. This is the house that they lived in. So they have a nice roomy house. Several bedrooms, a bath, a living room. It's brick. They got trees. They got a nice front yard. It's just the 2 of them. She was murdered in 1985. Everybody was dumbfounded. It's a small town. Word quickly spread. Now, 120 miles away at the Texas Association of Secondary School Principals annual conference in Austin, Texas, Joe Bryan was taken aside by the organization's executive director, Harold Massey, not long after 10 a.m. The 2 men had known each other for years, and as they huddled in the foyer of one of the Hyatt Regency's conference rooms, Massey got to the point. Mickey had been shot to death in their home. "Are you sure you got the correct information?" Joe stammered. "Mickey Bryan of Clifton, Texas?" Massey helped him to a chair as he grew unsteady in his feet. 3 principals whose help Massey enlisted found Joe near the check-in desk. He appeared unmoored, his face gone slack with shock. He sat by himself, holding his head in his hands. They took him upstairs to his hotel room, where he would lay in bed shivering. Still dressed in his suit and tie, he pulled the covers over himself. He cried the whole way there. Says that 2 people came and picked him up. No, is this the same author? Because a lot of this stuff looks exactly the same. No, this is by Pamela Koloff. So let's go back to this book, Framed. They lived in Clifton, Texas. Mickey had voted Miss Clifton. She had been voted Miss Clifton High her senior year. Her parents had still lived in Clifton, Texas. Her family was respected and well known. Mickey Blue, Bryan got a job as a 4th grade teacher. Joe was the high school principal. They loved living in Clifton. They were active in the community, especially the First Baptist Church. Joe was out almost every night at some school function. He never missed a football game. With no children at home, they doted on one another and were determined to keep their marriage fresh. Now, Mickey Blue was always the first teacher to arrive at Clifton Elementary School, often at her desk at 7 a.m. But on Tuesday, October 15th, 1985, Mickey Blue did not arrive to school. They called her at the house. She didn't answer. Joe was 120 miles away in Austin attending the annual gathering of the Texas Association of Secondary School Principals. I mean, was this meeting actually happening? He had spoken to Mickey at 9 p.m. the night before when he called from his hotel room in Austin. As always, he had told her he loved her and that he would be home the following afternoon. Rex Daniels was at the house Rex arrived at the Bryan's house first and saw that Mickey's car was parked in the garage. The morning papers lay in the driveway. He rang the doorbell, but nobody answered. The Blues arrived with the key and they all went inside. Vera went first, called her daughter's name. When she stepped into the master bedroom, she screamed at the ghastly sight. Blood was splattered across the ceiling and the four walls. Mickey lay across the bed covered in blood, obviously dead. Mickey Blue's body was lying across the unmade bed. Mickey Blue was naked from the waist down, and her pink nightgown was pulled up to her thighs, which would insinuate rape. They called the police around 10 a.m. as Joe was attending a session of the conference in Austin. Harold Massey, the organization's executive director, told him that his wife had been shot to death, and he said, "Mickey Bryan of Clifton, Texas?" Clifton was at least 2 hours from Austin, a fact that would become important later on. Joe was in no condition to drive. Two friends from Clifton arrived around noon to take him home, and when he saw them, he broke down and began crying again. One friend later recalled very little was said. Joe sat in the back with his head down and cried the whole way. The fabled Texas Rangers were on the scene. Don't worry, everybody, the Texas Rangers are here. So they're saying that the .357 Magnum pistol, which was loaded with bird shot to kill rattlesnake and copperheads, was missing. There was supposed to be $1,000 in a metal box. He didn't understand who would want to hurt Mickey Blue and why. At the crime scene, investigators worked feverishly late into the night. Let's get a different picture up here. Here's the house. Some details emerged. Mickey Blue had been shot 4 times at close range. Joe's .357 Magnum was missing. Lead pellets were in Mickey's wounds and all over the bedroom, indicating that the pistol was probably the murder weapon. There were no witnesses. The neighbors had heard and seen nothing. They couldn't hear a .357 Magnum shot 4 times. There were no suspicious fingerprints, no boot or shoe prints. No semen was found with vaginal swabs. No semen was found. There were no signs of forced entry into the home. A cigarette butt was found on the kitchen floor, but neither Mickey nor Joe Bryan had smoked. When the investigators realized that Mickey's gold wedding band, watch, and diamond ring were missing, along with Joe's pistol, they assumed that she was a victim of a burglary turned homicide. Robert Thorman, 4 months earlier, he had received his certification as a bloodstain pattern analysis. Where was Robert Thorman at the whole time? Now, all it took Robert Thorman to become a certified bloodstain pattern analysis is he took a 1-week, 40-hour crash course, which he paid $400 for. So 40 hours, $400, 1 week, and you too could become a bloodstain pattern analysis. And that's all that I've got highlighted so far, so I guess we'll talk about this some more. This little article kind of is redundant, and so I'll just kind of just be spontaneous and talk right off the top of my head. I want to believe that he's innocent, but it sucks because guilty people, bad people could do good and good people could do evil. He seems like, a nice guy, nice and charming guy. And later on we're going to find out that it was Dennis Dunlap. And so I'm going to read this whole thing again because let's just presume that what John Grisham is painting up as true. We're going to make an innocent person spend 33 years in jail. He just had his wife shot and killed. He just had one of the most traumatic things that he could have ever experienced in his life. So even if he was allowed to be the teacher or the principal or work at the school, he'd be extremely sad. He would need counseling. He would never get over it. The love of his life is dead and gone. How did that happen? Why did that happen? They seem very happy in their pictures. And then come to find out this Dennis Dunlap is the guy that fucking did it. So Dennis Dunlap is going to go in and kill Mickey Blue. They're going to put it on Joe Bryan. Joe Bryan is later on going to be called a homosexual, and they're going to try to tarnish his name. They found a flashlight. And so just my skeptical mind, the flashlight does have a couple of, blood splatter on it. And so I don't know if that one picture of the bedroom is actually the way it looks. The blood will tell. Is that what the bedroom looked like? Because in a way, that's sort of what the specs look like too. Because why would there be blood on all four walls? All four walls? Was she standing up? What is the story of the bloodstain expert? Why would there be blood on all four walls and the ceiling? That sounds like a crazy killing. You don't just shoot somebody and blood goes all over the place. Here's the flashlight right there. It's a lot of tiny specks of red. And then that's going to be the piece of evidence that's going to convict him. Now the jury didn't get this picture. They got some other picture and they said that the specks were blurry and they couldn't tell exactly what it was. He had this flashlight in the trunk of his car. And so they concoct a crazy story. They said even though he was 2 hours away at this principal's conference, maybe he drove home. He snuck in. Had a flashlight in the dead of the night, shot her, and then raced back up. He makes sure he cleaned the fingerprints, cleaned the boot prints, make sure there was no blood on him or his clothes. And then he was able to get a good night's sleep, and then he was at the conference when the news came in that morning. Technically speaking, there was 12 hours, so I guess you could drive for 2 hours and then 2 hours back. That's 4. So that still leaves 8 hours. You don't need to sleep all 8 hours. Maybe sleep 4 hours or so. But you could also tell how he had behaved and how he had acted. And where are the witnesses? And where are his friends? And since Dennis Dunlap had done it, you're going to put it on this poor guy that just lost his wife, and now you're accusing him of murder, and now you just threw him behind bars for 33 years because the cops didn't want to do their damn job. There's other stories in that framed book. It's called Framed, Astonishing True Stories of Wrongful Convictions. The Norfolk Four was a crazy story. They gave false confessions. Why would anybody give a false confession? Yep, it happened just like you said. They all said that they were intimidated by the guy. The guy had wore them down, and then eventually they just started lying, and then later on they had to stick to their lies or else they were going to get the death penalty, so the prosecution just kept putting more pressure on top of them. And then really all the guy was yelling at was he was trying to get, a confession, a forced confession, and then once he got the forced confession, then he thought he had him. And they were essentially just some good folks. So we'll talk more about this story. But since Dennis Dunlap did it, he got away with it. He got away with it completely. Took I think he's going to kill himself later on, but he got the... I heard he was sleeping with the wife too. Maybe, maybe not. Why would he shoot her? Why would he shoot her? But for Joe Bryan, this is the face of evil. This guy is going to take away his wife and then take away his life because a Texas Ranger said that he was actually a homosexual. Now, since there was a mistress, that would be motive for both of them. Maybe both of them were overcome with jealousy. Maybe it was totally a robbery. Maybe it was a rape and a robbery, and then he wanted her to keep her mouth shut or something. And then he was a suspect at first, but then he just disappeared. He was a police officer. So if you're a police officer, we're just going to kind of look the other way. That kind of reminds me of John Parker, who's a Washington, D.C. police officer who was supposed to protect Abraham Lincoln, and he wasn't at his post. If he had been at his post, Lincoln would still be alive today. But nobody really questioned him. Makes me think of Robert Kennedy. That guy was just a security guard. Caesar Thane, Eugene Thane Caesar. We're not going to question any of the police. Eugene Thane Caesar said, I'd rather not be part of the whole thing. So Dennis Dunlap really fucked Joe Bryan up. He fucked his whole life up. Took away his wife. Took away 33 years of his life. And for what reason? In the heat of the moment, he just wanted to do... Was it pre-planned? And why? She was nice. Couldn't he just walk away? He had a reputation of not taking no for an answer when he would try to ask women and try to pick them up. And then why would the system carry on with such a blatant bullshit story?